I'm an idiot. Thank you, kiddo. Here we go again. I'd moved my mic and accidentally turned it off. Because as you can see, I've got it turning the other way around for this. I've not got it dropped down, I've got it face up this time. I use it dropped down for gaming because it's easier, it doesn't get in the way. Right, so. Yeah, I know. So, obligatory warning. Not suitable for children or anyone with a sensitive disposition. Disposition, yeah, I said it better that time. Due to the graphic nature of the content. So, first and only warning. Don't blame me if you have nightmares about it. I warned you. So, viewer discretion is advised. There, legality's done. Again, this time with volume. Right, so. Hey, Soulless. Thanks for joining. So, as I said, unintentionally, this story actually ties in with a few that we've done before. Now, it is graphic in its nature. It's not a pleasant story, but it does tie in with the Helen Priestley case from a few weeks ago. And it ties in with the Jesse King case from 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So it does tie in to an extent, but it is completely unintentional, I promise you that. So, and I even made the font bigger. I'm learning. See, I'm getting good at this. Hey, Kia. How's you? So, like I said, it does tie in unintentionally. Hey, Andy. Right, so, tonight's story takes us to Coatbridge and Glasgow. It is indeed spooky story time. Spooky true life story time. Unfortunately, these stories really did happen. But if you, just before actually I get into this, while I've got you here, Ginge, can you put the Discord link in chat just in case? I need to stop. I need to turn that off so that I don't see that. Because I actually saw that before it came up, so I don't think that doesn't really work in this unless I'm looking down to read. Because I'm always facing the screen. But yeah, I've put a new bit on Discord. Well, Ginge put a new bit on Discord. I'm going to have to branch out a wee bit for Scottish stories. I have no idea. And why is that not working? That's not working. Damn it! That should be working. Anyway, there's a bit in there. I'm going to need to branch out for just Scottish stories. I'm starting to run kind of low on them. You know, the pool's a bit dry again. So, any ideas, put them in there and I'll look into them. Cigarette keeps going up. Yeah, you go me. That should be working. That is so weird. I know. I could just take the widgets, or just take it off the screen so I can't see it. It's easy enough done. My letterbox, I'd take it off. Right, so tonight's story takes us to Coatbridge and Glasgow and takes place in 1923. Holy fuck, my viewer count just jumped up. Young John Johnson. Sorry, side note. If you're going to have a kid and your surname's Johnson, don't call that kid John. That just doesn't sit right with me. It'd be like me having a boy and naming him Taylor. No, doesn't sit right with me. But anyway, young John Johnson was a 13-year-old paper boy living in Coatbridge, and on the evening of 20th of June, I read that the wrong way around, 1923, at around 7 p.m, John was out and about and was seen heading for a flat in Newell Street, Coatbridge, where he would enter a flat and would never be seen alive again. Well, we know where this story's gone, folks. The flat in question belonged to 30-year-old Susan Newell. She shared the flat with her second husband, John Newell, and her 8-year-old daughter, Janet MacLeod. There we go. Thank you, Ginge. There's a link to the Discord, folks, if you're not already there. That'll take you straight to the Ginger Army. And if you go on to the Bucky's horror story bit on the side, well, you can leave any suggestions you have for me in there. So neighbours later reported hearing loud bangs, an adult shout, "Shut the fucking door," it's a direct quote, hence the F-bomb, and then silence. So, wee bit of background here on the people that are living in the house. Susan Newell was born in 1893 and grew up in poverty. John was her second husband, and he was known for being a drunk and a womanizer. Lovely gentleman. Susan was known for having a bad temper, with a history of violence. In fact, the day before the death of John Johnson, the police had been called to the family home as she had beaten her husband about the head. The day of the murder, another argument had occurred, resulting in John Newell leaving the family home to stay at his sister's. Their arguments were so bad that after only 3 weeks of living at their rented flat, the landlady had served them with an eviction notice, as she couldn't take any more complaints about the couple. So, this is a charming couple, always arguing. They've only been there 3 weeks and they're getting evicted. Now, I should note, Janet, Susan Newell's daughter, has got a different surname. Her surname's MacLeod, because she is in fact the daughter from Susan's first marriage. Didn't find anything out about the first husband, but he's not relevant to the story. But considering she's known to have violent tendencies, I wouldn't be surprised if he thought, hell to the no, and just packed up and ran. Right. So, at around 7 p.m, young John knocked on the Newell's door and Susan answered. He asked if she wanted to buy a copy of the local newspaper. I'm assuming it would be the Evening Times. That's the... At that time of night, it's no mention, but I would assume that's usually when the Evening Times gets delivered. She told him to come in. Upon entering, John asked for the money for the paper. It's fair enough. Susan became irate and beat the poor lad until he was dead. All he did was ask for the money for the newspaper that she already took off him, and she beat him to death. She tried to bury the young lad under the floorboards, but to no avail. And remember, she was getting evicted. She didn't care. But her plan didn't work. And if she just gave up trying to bury him, I'm assuming that's what the banging was. During this time, her daughter entered the flat. She then forced her 8-year-old daughter Janet into helping her. The pair covered the body in a brightly coloured quilt. And the following morning, so they left this poor dead boy overnight, wrapped in this brightly covered quilt. The following morning, they lifted his body downstairs. The mother and daughter then used a go-kart to transport the young lad's body on foot. So they pushed this go-kart 8 miles from Coatbridge to Glasgow. So she made this poor 8-year-old girl walk 8 miles pushing a dead body. She seems like absolutely delightful mother and a wonderful person. A lorry driver noticed that the pair were struggling with the cart as they made their way into the city. Thomas Dixon happened to be heading the same direction and offered to put the cart in the back of his vehicle. That was awfully nice of him. But as they got off the truck, the makeshift cover for the body was exposed slightly as his foot emerged from one end of the quilt. So the quilt moved and you could see his foot. The mother and daughter opted to use the go-kart. Yeah, I don't know why that's in there twice. Right. John's head, which was covered in burns to his scalp and ears, had also become visible. Lorry driver Thomas was left completely unaware of what was unfolding. But the grisly sight caught the attention of one local resident below her window. So, wee busybody looking out the window wondering what's going on, happened to see this dead body in a cart in the back of a lorry. Delightful. As Newell started to dump the body inside the close on Duke Street, remember that folks, it's going to come in handy. I know there won't be a pop quiz, but Duke Street. A police officer was on hand to arrest her at the scene. Both Susan and her husband were charged with John Johnson's murder. Now the old woman had seen this body, had seen this mother and daughter with this poor wee lad's body coming out the back of a truck, and should got the attention of the local police, who would, they don't do it now, but at the time they would obviously patrol the area. So she got attention, the wee busybody neighbour got the attention and got the police to the scene, and I've dropped my fag on my paperwork because my hands aren't working. So both Susan and her husband, who wasn't there, okay, he had actually left to go and stay with his sister the night of the murder because, again, Susan kicked off. Now, Janet later told the court how she was forced into helping her evil mum dispose of the body. Evidence during the trial had revealed the horrors of what went on in that house. John Johnson had been strangled so brutally that his windpipe had burst. Parts of his skull were found to be caved in as a result of the beating he had received. John Ewell was found not guilty after his relatives swore he had been at a funeral in the city that day and had stayed overnight. Well, we know he wasn't there because his wife went nuts and beat the shit out of him, so he's like, no, you know what, fuck this, I'm out, I'm going to strike my sisters. And that saved his life. Okay? I mean, he probably wasn't thinking it at the time. He was just thinking, this crazy ass bitch just beat the shit out of me again. But that saved his life getting that meeting. So, no, I'm going to break it down because, again, everything happens so quick. I mean, the murder took place in the evening of the 20th, and on the 22nd of June, police arrest Susan, who was alleged to have conveyed a body to Duke Street close in a go-kart along a busy highway for about 8 miles. covered in a quilt and propped up in an attempt to escape. And attempted to escape by scaling a wall. So she ran away. Police show up and she runs away, leaving her daughter. Delightful woman. Not only did she force her daughter to help cover up her body and walk 8 miles, she then abandons her to escape the police. Mrs. Newell was arrested and taken to the police station at Tobago Street. Police were searching for a man. John Newell eventually surrendered himself to the police at Haddington. So he wasn't even in the area. He was gone. 23rd of June. Mr. and Mrs. Newell are in custody. And here's where we get tied in. Here's a name that's familiar. Professor John Gleester from Glasgow University. We've met him a few times. He seems to have been quite the prominent forensic scientist through this time, because we met him in 1888 when we were dealing with Jesse King. We met him when we were dealing with Little Helen Priestley. So he seems to be quite an informative figure in forensics for around this time. We see what I mean about these stories having inadvertently tied in. And Dr. John Anderson of the Victoria Infirmary carried out a post-mortem examination of the body of the dead lad at Glasgow's Central Police Mortuary. 25th of June. A witness comes forward to say he had given Mrs. Newell and the go-kart a lift. So the lorry driver, Thomas, I want to say Dixon. Yep, Thomas Dixon. So Thomas Dixon has came forward. He says, look, I drove them. "10th of September. So we've jumped forward a wee bit. These two are in custody, the man and the wife, they're in custody. Remember, the man's completely oblivious. He's a drunk and a womanizer, but he's innocent in all of this. He is, in fact, a victim of this woman. Right, so 10th of September. The accused were brought before the sheriff at Glasgow. The indictment includes a list of 19 productions, pieces of evidence, which included photographs, a plan of the location, medical reports, the go-kart itself, 2 bed covers, a poker, and the names of 17 witnesses. September 18th. So we're moving through this quite quick. It's right. I'm going to stop for a minute and just appreciate this for what it is. Nowadays, it can take years to even get a murderer in court, or a suspected murderer, sorry, into court. But here we are. Back then, we even less than what, well, no less, sorry, than what we've got now at their hands. They're getting this rushed through court. It's amazing. Like, within months, sentences are getting carried out. Whereas nowadays, it takes years to secure a conviction, if at all. So that's pretty impressive. Or at least I reckon so. Right, so, 18th of September, the case opens. And young Janet McLeod goes into the witness box. Now, she says that she sat on the boy's dead body when travelling in a lorry to Glasgow. But both John and Susan Newell plead not guilty, with John having the special defence of having an alibi because he wasn't there. He was at his sister's. I don't know why that tells you what they were wearing. And why would they feel the need to tell us that she was wearing the blue coat and he carried his hat in his hand. That's not really relevant. But, hey ho. So, 19th of September, the next day, trial's closing. The end of the trial the next day. That blows my mind, that. How amazing this was. How quick. I mean, Jesus Christ, you're trying to take somebody to court nowadays for something and it can take years. Right, so, on the 19th of September, after hearing John Newell's evidence in support of his plea, because again he had an alibi, the Crown withdrew the charge against him and he was discharged. And the jury were sent away for their deliberations. Questions were asked regarding the wife's sanity, but now she pled insanity. Right. Straight off the bat, wasn't me. I'm not right in the head. Didn't wash. Doctors declared her fit and sane. So she was completely aware of what she was doing. She knew what she was doing and she was controlling her behaviour. According to the jury, the crime was committed in a moment of frenzy. As Mrs. Newell had been left by her husband without money and she was about to be turned from her home onto the street. She caused all of that. Her husband left because she beat him 2 days in a row. 2 days straight, she beat him to the point that the police were involved. And the fact that they were being evicted was her fault because she was continually doing it. She was an abusive wife. And the landlord decided that she couldn't put up with the complaints anymore and was turfing her out. So, hey ho, can't blame him for that. So, this wee lad, he turns up to try and sell a newspaper, and this woman decides, you know what, I've caused all this is all my fault, but I'm taking it out on you, and she beats him to death. She crushes his windpipe, caves in his skull, and burns his head and scalp. All because she caused her husband to leave and she caused us to get evicted. That's not some narcissistic shit. I don't know what is. Really? Kid's only wanting 5 pence for a newspaper and she beats the living shit out of him until he's dead because she messed up. She made her husband walk out. She caused the eviction. But yeah, why not? Let's just take it in this pair wee lad that's only trying to earn a few bob. I'm an idiot. So, 20th of September. Having been found guilty by the jury, and here we go again, right? I've commented on this before, but how quick these juries would come back. We've had 18 minutes, we've had 9 minutes. In this case, 35 minutes of deliberations. It took 35 minutes. And the jury comes back with a guilty verdict. And she was sentenced to death. And she was to be hanged by the neck until dead. Good. Don't know what more I can say about that, but good. 10th of October. Fortnight later, sentence was carried out at Duke Street Prison. On the morning of the 10th of October, 1923, she was hanged by the neck until she was dead. So this little lad gets killed on the 20th of June, or July, August, September, October. Less than 4 months, they find the killer, get a conviction, and carry out sentence. Right now, if you go to a death penalty state in the US and you get sentenced to death, 10 years later you're still sitting living it up on death row. 4 months. Less than 4 months. And she was dead. Now, I can put the paper down now because of the rest I don't actually need the paper for. A couple of interesting facts about this. Now, obviously, Dr. Gleester's turned up again. And we have met him before. We've met him a few times. And he's quite an interesting character, actually. I might have a look and see what other cases he's worked on, because his name seems to crop up a hell of a lot. In fact, I think he's pretty much cropped up in the majority of the cases that I've looked into, which is kind of interesting, really. So we've got that. One wee pathologist turned up again, so yeah, he goes. But a couple of things to note. The prison in Glasgow where the sentence was carried out, Duke Street, which is quite ironic when you think about it, because Duke Street happens to be where she tried to dump the body. So there's that. But the thing that got me about this case, the interesting thing, not only did she die at the site where she tried to dump the body, which in itself is fairly interesting. The fact that one wee pathologist popped up again, but I didn't discover that until doing the research, so that was something that I wasn't expecting. That was a nice wee surprise. Don't know if nice is the right word, considering we're talking about dead children here, but so yeah, would be pathologist Dr. Gleester turned up again, which was kind of cool. But the thing that got me about this, now we spoke about Jessie King a few weeks ago, and Jessie King, horrible woman, still maintain her husband should have died as well, but hey ho. So Jessie King, horrible woman. She was the last woman to be executed in Edinburgh in 1888. Now, Susan Newell was the first woman to be executed at Duke Street Prison in Glasgow, which on its own is pretty interesting. But not only was she the first woman to be executed there, she was in fact the last woman to be executed at Duke Street Prison in Glasgow. In actual fact, she was the last woman ever to be executed in Scotland. After her, no other women have been executed in Scotland until they abolished the death penalty. So, no women have been convicted, of committing a crime so heinous since then that it required the death penalty. So I found that really interesting. So, although these cases, these were all found randomly, I mean, I didn't, when I was looking for these stories, I didn't go looking for, sorry, I keep looking down there because I'm contemplating opening a packet of crisps. Nay bother, kiddo, I'll catch you later. Thanks for stopping in. So, yeah, when I was looking for these cases, I wasn't looking for a connection. I found them all, well, you don't want to be looking at my browser history, let's put it that way. But I found them all completely independent of each other, looking for completely different things, and I came across these stories, and somehow, some reason, I could set that top link now because I'm not needing it anymore. But for some random reason, they all ended up connected. I mean, you had the Helen Priestley murder, where the woman in question was sentenced to death but got a reprieve, and got a reprieve the next day. And after 10 years in jail, she was released on compassionate grounds because her husband, who I'm still not 100% sure, but because I don't know, but her husband had cancer, he was dying, so she was getting granted compassionate leave to care for him, and then got to live out the rest of her life happy as Larry and the shadows when you name. But it was the pathologist that was able to prove that she had in fact, sorry, this cushion's, I'm sitting right, that she had in fact faked the injuries. And it was the same pathologist that was able to put the hair, if you remember. Well, that same pathologist was involved in the Jesse King case. And then again we find out he was involved in the Susan Newell case. And I mean, I know that they're all roughly within like a 40-year period of each other, so it makes sense that it would be the same pathology team. But when you think about it, little Helen Priestley, that was up in Aberdeen. Jesse King was Edinburgh. And tonight with Susan Newell, that was Glasgow. So we've got 3 different cities, and it's the same pathologist for all 3. And it's the first 3 stories that I've done that haven't been cannibal based. So it makes you think. And then of course we've got the coincidences with the last woman to be hanged in Edinburgh, and the first and last woman to be hanged in Glasgow Duke Street, and in fact the last woman to be hanged in Scotland. So now I don't doubt that. In fact, I'm going to check that. because I don't believe that there's no been another crime committed by a female that didn't in Scotland that didn't warrant the death penalty. So right, so actually that's a lot later than I thought. Oh, so Susan Newell was the last woman to be executed in Scotland, October 10th, 1923. The death penalty was abolished in the UK. Well, Scotland, Wales and England. It doesn't, obviously, Ireland's not included for the purposes of this, but the death penalty was abolished in Scotland by royal assent on the 8th of November 1965. So I'm expected to believe that no woman committed heinous crimes deserving of the death penalty between October 10th, 1923 and the 8th of November 1965. Almost 43 years later. 42 years later, I can't count. 42 years, 1 month, pretty much to the day later, and not a single heinous crime was committed by a woman in Scotland. I find that very difficult to believe, and it actually leads me to believe this. Right, the commencement was obviously the day after, but royal assent was the 8th of November 1965. Now, it leads me to believe one thing and one thing only, and it's certainly not that women stopped committing heinous crimes, but it's, in fact, that, well, look at the case of little Helen Pusely and what happened to her murderer. After 10 years, she was let go. So it leads me to believe that the law's sexist as hell. Because right, I'm trying to find a date. I've got it. Right, so the last woman was hanged and executed in Scotland, 10th of October 1923. 13th of August 1964. Peter Anthony Allen was hanged at Watson Prison in Liverpool. So the last execution took place in August 64. Executions were abolished in November 65, but the last woman in Scotland to be executed was 1923. That, to me, that just screams that the courts were favouring the fairer sex, so to speak. It just seems to me that, I mean, I could be wrong, but I do highly, let me know what you think by all means, but personally, I highly doubt that there were no more serious crimes committed by women in Scotland in that 40-year time frame. I don't believe it. Not for a second do I believe that women stopped committing violent murders for 40 years. I believe that the courts went more lenient on women. Else, why else would that... I can't even remember her name. The woman that killed... Donald. The woman Donald that killed wee Helen Priestley. Why else would she have got let out after 10 years? A man wouldn't have. A man would have hanged within a couple of days. It strikes me as very unfair. And it proves, to me at least, that the legal system does favour females. Or at least it goes more leniently on women that commit these crimes. But, like I said, that is just my personal opinion on it. I could be wrong. It could be that all of a sudden women stopped being violent. Maybe they started getting clever and didn't get caught. But I just think that it's unbelievable. But that being said, she was the first female to be executed in that prison as well as being the last. So we know women have got a tendency to be violent. So there's the last 3 stories, the killers have been women. So I find it very, very difficult to believe that women just suddenly stopped committing heinous acts. Like I said, I could be wrong. But, hey ho. You started researching some of this stuff, you find it hard to believe that. But, so, let's take stock. This is week 6. Yeah, week 6 doing this. And so far we have covered 2 cannibal cases. We've covered a baby killer. A brutal murder of an 8-year-old girl that was set up to look like a sex crime. And a woman so angry at the mess she created, she brutally murdered a teenage paperboy. And then, of course, there's last week's story. A man so desperate to become a doctor, he pretended to be a teenage boy again and went back to high school. And the teachers were none the wiser. He even made it all the way to university before he got caught out. That one was nuts. Now, obviously some of these stories are known, some of them weren't. Next week, I've got a story that I've kept under my hat for a wee while. And everybody knows it. It was made into a movie. Wasn't a low budget indie movie like the one for last week. My Old School. Just still need to try and find out how it watched because I do want to see that. But it was made a big high budget movie with some big names, and it is It's a story that everybody knows. Okay. But I'm going to do that next week. Because I've been sitting on this one for a wee while. And so I'm going to do that then. And obviously there are a lot of big stories that everybody knows about that I'm not going to touch because everybody knows them, so there's no really any point in going over old ground. Next week's story is different because I have mentioned it before, and me and Ginge, we can add our insight into this story. Just purely because of where we've worked in the past, so that's why I want to cover it. And it's a story that I'm actually fascinated by. I always have been. It's a bit the same as the Sonny Bean story. It's something that's always fascinated me, so I'm going to do it. But I promise no cannibals and no baby killers this time. But after that, now there is one more story that I want to do, but I want to, this particular story that I want to do, I want to give it the true justice it deserves. So there is one big story that I want to do that everybody knows. Everybody will remember. It's a heartbreaking story, but I want to do the justice it deserves. So I'm gonna leave it for a wee while. And Jen, you can exactly what story I'm talking about, Tim. Babe, you will. But so I'm gonna sit on it and I'm gonna wait, and it's gonna be quite some time before I do it because it's a heartbreaking story and it deserves the utmost respect. So to do it justice, I'm gonna hold off and do it at the appropriate time. But after next week's story, I've got nothing. So hit me up on Discord, hit me up on Twitter, on Insta. Give me ideas. Now, I'm opening the floor up. Okay? If it's a Scottish story, brilliant. If not the end of the world. We have the internet, people. We all walk about, I've said it before, we walk about with computers in our pockets these days. If it's a story with this country, it's not a big deal. I can research other stories from other countries. In fact, I'm kind of looking forward to doing it, really. Because we've met some sick and twisted people in Scotland. Let's see what other sickos are out there. So, homework assignment. Hit me up with some stories. Could be local to your area. Like the Christy the Cleek. That was a local folklore story, lore story from where my brother-in-law is from. So if you've got a real life boogeyman in your town's or city's history, then let me know and I'll get the research done. Because like I said, after next week I've got nothing apart from this one story that I'm sitting on until... Jeez. Months. I'll be honest, after summer. To get the respect it deserves, I'm going to do this one right, but so after next week, I've got nothing. There are a few rules. Oh, thank you, Kia. That's really sweet. But there are a few rules. I don't do religion. I won't do sectarian crimes. I won't do religious crimes. When I say religious crimes, I mean Like, obviously, if there's a history of satanic cult in your area and they committed atrocities, then I'm going to look into that shit, okay? I'm not going to hide that. But I won't touch anything surrounding the Masonic Order, the Orange Order, Scientology. I ain't touching any of that. Purely because I like breathing, okay? I don't want to go pissing people off. I don't want anything. I don't want open cases. I mean, if it's a story for the early 1900s and the killer's never been found, then fine, I will look into it. But if it's a murder that happened 5 years ago and the killer's still out there, nah, not touching it. Sorry. If it's something that happened recently, no. If it's an old story that's recently been brought back into the media, like last week's, where obviously the movie getting made for Sundance, last week's took place in 1993, and it's recently been brought back into the media, I don't mind doing that, but I'm not doing somebody killed somebody 5 years ago. I'm not doing it. It's too raw. There's still too many victims out there. So I'm not touching on anything like that. But the more weird, the more obscure, the better. Okay. So, like I said, homework assignment, hit me up on Discord, hit me up on Twitter, on Insta, TikTok, Reddit, you name it. Just Buckybird, you can't miss it. It's the same spelling everywhere. But I'm gonna leave it there for tonight. Next week's story, I can't imagine will have what pathologist in it. I can't imagine. Although that being said, although it's before his time, he might have written something on it. Because, you know, he does that. Or he did that, I'm assuming he'll be dead, but probably, I might even actually just do a bit of research into this pathologist himself, because he does seem quite a prominent figure. All I can notice is the giant ass Pikachu behind me, by the way. It's like, really? There's a giant Pikachu behind me. Oh, I'm sitting telling these stories of horrific gore and brutal murders, and there's a Pikachu behind me. It's not even a small Pikachu, he's fucking huge. And Ginge won him in a raffle for £1. Like, really? So, yeah. After next week's story, the wells run dry, so hit me up with ideas. And I don't mind going out to Scotland. Obviously, when I do find a Scottish story, I will go back to it, but I'm kind of running dry on them, so hit me up. But I will be back next Sunday at 9 with more Scotland the Grave. I will be back on Tuesday for, it's titled Metal and Mayhem, but I'm really not doing so much metal at the moment. Purely because I don't want to get messed about with the MCA and all that. I'm trying to watch what I'm doing. So, I'll be back on Tuesday with some Battle Royale type game. Then again on Thursday for, could be anything really. Who knows? Might do some Back for Blood, might do some DBD, don't know yet, haven't decided. Ginge will be back tomorrow. Yeah, Ginger will be here tomorrow at 8. Don't know what he's doing yet. But until then, be good people, do good things, look after each other, and I will catch you all next week. Bye bye now.